Hello Internet, this is James from Team Coolspeedbot, and today I wanted to do a video talking about a robot that I collaboratively built with another builder, and that's a robot called A-Game. Now A-Game is a robot that belongs to Anthony Murney, also known as Two Penny Milk on YouTube. A-Game was his second or third featherweight. I could be mistaken. I know it was either a second or third. For his team called Team Penny, which you can find on Facebook. Both his channel and his Facebook page will be in the description if I remember to do that. He's also done his own video on the latter half of the build for A-Game on his channel, which I'll also put in the description. But I'm going to cover what I did on the build. So A-Game is actually a revised version of one of my featherweights, Coolspeedbot 1. What happened was Anthony expressed an interest in buying Coolspeedbot 1 when it was on sale. However, it had already been sold by that time. However, I was very so there's a lot of howevers in there. So basically, he wanted to buy Coolspeedbot 1's chassis, but it was no longer available because it had already been sold. However, as I was confident enough to build a brand new chassis for him, I said I'll be able to build a brand new one within roughly 2 weeks, and that's where we got the ball rolling when it came to putting this robot together. So my main contribution was the CAD-in, or to be more precise, the revised CAD-in and the construction of the high-density polyethylene chassis, or HDPE for short, I should say, when it comes to the abbreviation. Because I will get that, I'll keep using both names by accident. So the main revisement when it came to changing it from Coolspeedbot into A-Game was merely simplifying the wedge approach. On Coolspeedbot, it was a lot more complex. It utilized 4 tabs that were welded to the underside of the Hardox wedge and would sandwich either side of the bulkheads. And using shoulder bolts, they would go through the tabs into the HDPE and out the other side into the other tab before being secured with a lock nut. And that was how it was mounted. And that's too complex of an approach. I mean, it works for me because it's my robot, because Coolspeedbot was my robot, and so I could do what I want with it because I was the only person working on it. But because Anthony has got to work on his robot, and as he said in our discussion before we started work on it, that he was going to make his own wedge, I had to make it that he could get that wedge mounted onto A-Game with no difficulties. So that's why I revised the design and made this. So it is a straightforward, similar to flat pack furniture. For those of you who want a good non-robot combat illustration of what this is like. Basically, the principle is a bolt goes into these holes on the front, into holes that are in the HDPE bulkheads, and into these cavities, which will have a barrel nut inside, and which the bolts will thread into, and therefore form the join, would bolt, form the join that would bolt the robots together. The wedge to the bolt, wedge to the bolt, wedge to the robot, I should say. Fourth take, I should add, fourth take, and I'm still flubbing. But anyway, so I got the CAD redesigned to suit the fact that Anthony was going to be working on the finishing of the robot. The next stage was to order the plastic The plastic used was HDPE, as I mentioned. We used white HDPE for the main chassis and black HDPE for the wedge. But I'll go in depth into what thicknesses and stuff I used. So the bulkheads, the back panel, and the standoffs, I'll call them standoffs, were 20mm HDPE in white. I think I covered which one was coloured what. The side panels, base plate, top plate were, and the motor mounts, or the internal motor mounts, were 10mm HDPE, and the front wedge was 5mm HDPE that I had lying around. The core purpose of the wedge that I made was to act as a template so Anthony could get the bolt holes for his metal wedge lined up and cut exactly as he needed to. It also served as a temporary wedge should he choose to use it. Of course, he has chosen to use it as the main wedge because he's going to an event with no spinners. So all the bulkheads and panels, bar the wedge, I should have mentioned, the wedge is unique in this difference, all bolt together using threaded inserts inside the bulkheads and the standoffs. So basically what that is, if the principle was a bit confusing, or well, I'll explain the principle. Basically, a metal insert goes into the plastic. Inside the insert is a threaded hole which will take a bolt and effectively act as a nut inside the plastic, or a thread for the plastic, because HDPE doesn't hold threads very well. It's very easy to strip the thread. You can tap the plastic or use screws, but it is very easy for the given a good enough hit from like a high kinetic energy spinner to rip the screws and the threads out. Hence why it's best to use barrel nuts or threaded inserts to put the construction. Other builders would probably say don't use threaded inserts other than a base plate and the top plate. For Coolspeedbot, it worked, so I based the principle on that. And because Anthony isn't fighting spinners with this robot, it will hold up a lot better. And so what became the job was I got the plastic from Direct Plastics. It arrived. I began cutting out and drilling all the plastic using my jigsaw and my drill stand. The way for those of you who may be interested in knowing how I did it, I stuck the templates of all the profiles from the CAD onto paper. So I printed it out, 1-to-1 scale, obviously. I say that some people may not know how the scale works for some people, but so 1-to-1 scale templates were printed off based on all the profiles. Obviously, for the bigger panels like the base plate and the top plate, they were drawn out and scribed into the plastic because I remember the measurements of very well. For those of you who are actually curious about the size, it is, because my CAD software actually tells me, it is 38 centimeters wide, and if I remember rightly, was roughly 29 centimeters long and roughly 10 centimeters tall. Is this give a sense of scale for the robot? So I spent 2 weeks putting the robot together, cutting out the plastic, drilling all the holes, putting in the threaded inserts, bolting the chassis together to make sure it actually goes together. And once I was happy that the robot had gone together as it should and was in a condition where I could give it to, where I can send it to Anthony to get his portion of the work done, I did so, because obviously this is a build for another person and I wanted to make sure it was right. Thankfully, I was able to get the build done in 2 weeks without any problems. That's a first. When I built Coolspeedbot 1, it took roughly 18 months to build the robot. Granted, some of that was with a previous design. But when it came to this design, it took me originally 6 to 8 months to do. I could be a bit exaggerating, but roughly that to get it built. And so to get a more faster turnaround is an impressive achievement for myself. So once the robot was cut out and drilled and all that, basically when the robot was put together and was ready to go off to Anthony, I packed it up, shipped it off with all the spare bits and bobs he would need from what I could make. The wheels for A-Game, Anthony, I don't think mentioned it in the video where the wheels come from. I think he mentioned it from me. But the wheels are actually from Coolspeedbot 1. They are spare unused wheels from Coolspeedbot 1 that I had lying around. And so I sent them to Anthony because, you know, they're ready to go. They are ready to be mounted on. And so he has them now and has mounted them onto the robot. And we have seen it actually test drive and work. At this moment in time, we are just waiting to see the robot in the arena. So fingers crossed, at some point this year, hopefully this year, Anthony will be able to go to an event in Ireland. Fingers crossed we don't have any more delays or hiccups. And we can get to see Anthony and A-Game in action in the arena. And yeah, that is more or less it when it comes to the build. It's a bit difficult doing a commentary, but with half the commentary being for pictures that I can't see on screen because they're going to be added in post. Hopefully. But yeah, that was the design and build of A-Game. It was a fun little project. It's also another thing off my bucket list as a roboteer, which is to collaborate on another robot person's build. And I felt very privileged to be involved in the build of A-Game, and I'm also glad I also got to enjoy a nostalgic feel of spiritually rebuilding Coolspeedbot 1. Because it's nice to finally have a chance to build a robot and actually enjoy it. I don't tend to enjoy my builds because I'm too busy focusing on putting it together. So it was nice to have a build that was done so quickly and I actually enjoyed it. So I will say, I think this is probably the point where I'm doing the outro now. But I will say good luck to Anthony and A-Game with their endeavours. I look forward to seeing it in action. And for you, casual viewer or subscriber, if you did enjoy this little video and would be interested in seeing videos focusing on my robots, such as Coolspeedbot 1, Coolspeedbot 2, which is the current work in progress robot, and possibly the outweights that I have, let me know in the comments. Because if you are actually interested in the build, let me know. So I will leave you there for now, because I have rambled on for so long. And I will see you next time. Cheerio.